Welcome back to the video lecture of software engineering. So we are discussing the influential key practice of extreme programming technique. So extreme programming technique is the basic methods of agile method, and we are discussing how the extreme programming practice can be implemented and what are the key or influential key practices of extreme programming. So they are the user stories for specification, refactoring, test first development, pair programming. So in our last video lecture we have already covered what are the user story specification, and in that user story specification we have learned that the user can give his requirement in case of story card, and we have to divide the story card into different implement tasks. Then according to the implemented task we are going to implement our actual software. So the second thing is refactoring. So let's have a discussion on refactoring. So what actually the conventional wisdom of software engineering? So the conventional wisdom in software engineering is to design for change, and it is worth spending time and effort anticipating changes as this reduces cost later in the life cycle. So what actually this point says? This point says that the conventional wisdom in actual software engineering, we are not talking about the agile software, we are not talking about extreme programming, we are talking about the software engineering. If there is no concept of extreme programming technique, so what is the conventional wisdom? The conventional wisdom is to design the software for change. So what is actually that? That means we have to put some effort on change anticipation. So change anticipation means what? Before change comes to me, I should guess what actually the change will be occur in my future. So there we are working on change anticipation. Before my customer will come to me and will say me that this is my requirement and you have to accommodate these changing requirements into the existing software. So before that I have to guess what will be the changes. So in future whatever the change will become, I will guess now and I will implement or I will accommodate those changes now. So that is the change anticipation, and that will help us to reduce cost. It is obvious, if my customer will come to me and say me that these are my requirements, so after 1 or 2 years this will cost more because I have to rework. So rework means what? Rework means cost is more. I will change all my system, all my subsystem, so that will be cost more. If I will accommodate those changes now, then obvious the rework cost should be reduced. So that is the software engineering, that is the conventional wisdom in software engineering. So what is the extreme programming practice? The people who are involved in extreme programming, they says that this is not a waste of time. It is worthless actually. Why it is worthless? Because we cannot predict our future 100%. We cannot predict what will be the changes or what actually the customer will acquire some changes in our future. The future can be predict 100%. I can say this may be the change, or in future the changes may arise, but I cannot say yes 100% surely the changes will come, this type of changes will come. I'm not sure about that. So that extreme programming approach will says that the people who are involved in extreme programming approach, they says that it is actually worthless because we can predict the future 100%. So rather working on change anticipation, what actually that means, if we are putting our effort that what will be the next, I am not sure what will be the next, but I can predict what will be the next, that is the change anticipation. So rather working on that what will be the next, we should work on our code. We should make our code in a structured manner so that the improvement can be done. We can rework on our code, whatever the situation may be, whenever the situation arises, we can change our code. So that is actually a skill to change our code, that existing code, that is known as refactoring. to change the code for the improvement of that code. So that is what refactoring. So the extreme programming people says that however maintains that this is not worthwhile, our changes can be reliable anticipated. That what actually I said, that the future can be predict 100%. So rather it proposes constant code improvement. So that is what actually refactoring, to make changes easier when they have to be implemented. So we are working on our code, we are making our code simple, and we are working on refactoring. We don't need to work on change anticipation, we need to work on refactoring, so that whenever the situation arises or whenever the situation wants some changes to implement it, then the code can be modified easily. So that is the refactoring. So next it says programming team look for possible software improvements and make these improvements even there is no immediate need for them. So what actually this point says? This point says that suppose I'm working on a computer for a specific program. So I know that this should be, if I will change some code, this will improve my code. But there is no requirement from the customer side. The customer does not actually knows about the code improvement and all. So I know, because I am the developer, I make the coding. So I know that if I will make some changes to my code, then this will be treated as a code improvement. So if there is a need, if there is no need for that, whatever it may be, if I am sure that this code will be improved or these changes can improve my code, so that's why I am making some changes into my code, and that is what actually refactoring. And the next point says this improves the understandability of the software, so reduces the need for documentation. Obvious, if I am changing my code for the improvement of my code, so obvious this improves the understandability. Whatever the or whoever the group it may be, if someone come later, then he can understand my code very easily, and obvious it will reduces the need for documentation. In case of agile method, we are not preferring the documentation. So if we are not preferring the documentation, that means improvement must be there. So if I will improve my code, it reduces the need for documentation. And the next one says changes are easier to make because the code is well structured and clear. We have already discussed it, because we are working on refactoring rather than change anticipation. So refactoring means improving our code. So if I will put my effort for improving my code, that means my code will be well structured. So whenever the changes will come, I can accommodate those changes by changing my code only, not changing any documentation, because we don't have any document in case of extreme programming approach. And the last one says, however, some changes requires architecture refactoring, and this is much more expensive. So maybe the architecture refactoring expensive, but first we should know what is architecture refactoring. Architectural refactoring means, architecture means what? System model. What are the functions and how the functions are work? That is the architectural refactoring. We should define what are the subsystems, what are the functions, what are the components they are in my system, and how they work. What is their work? So this is the architectural model. So when I need to change some architecture, that means if some function will change, that means the work will be changed. If I will change the code of a function, their work will be changed. So that time, suppose I want to delete some features. So what will be happen? If there are some interlinked function, then I should rework on those functions. Suppose I am calling a function from the main function. If I want to delete that function, that means the function call which exists in the main function, I should delete that. So I should change the code for that existing function which I want to delete, and also I want to change the code that are exist in between the main function. So I need to refactor on those. So that will be cost more. So what actually the last says, that the architectural refactoring If we will go for architectural refactoring, then it will be more expensive. So there is some examples of refactoring. The first one is reorganization of a class hierarchy to remove duplicate code. So what is that? What is the duplicate code and class hierarchy? So you know that there is a concept of inheritance. Class A is the parent class. Suppose class B is the child class. So class B will inherit all the codes of class A. Suppose class C is the child of class B. So class C will inherit the properties of class B. Class B inherit the properties of class A. So whatever the properties in class A, that will be present in class B and class C. If I will delete the class B, suppose there is no need for class B. So what will happen to the class C? The class C should be inherited from class A. So that is the refactoring. We need to change the code where we have inherited the class C from the class B. Class B is deleted. Now class C should be inherited from class A. So that is the class hierarchy. So whenever some situation arises, there are some duplicate code. So we have to remove those duplicate code and we should maintain the class hierarchy. So that is the refactoring. That is the example of refactoring. And the next example may be tidying off and renaming attributes and methods to make them easier to understand. So what is that? So that means tidying up and renaming attributes. So we know that if we are using some class or you are using some object oriented programming, so there are some concepts like class, object, attribute, method. The data members are the attributes, the functions or the processes, those are involved in that class, that is the methods. So suppose I want to rename that. So what is that? Suppose I am giving a variable x, so that will be treated as a normal variable, that is x. Suppose I am taking a variable which will hold some remainder part. So that variable should be named as remainder. So what actually we are doing? We are improving our readability. Suppose I want to check whether a given number is Armstrong or not. So I can give the name of the variable as Armstrong. Suppose I am taking a string. So that time I can, maybe I am taking a variable name as XYZ, but if I am taking the variable name as string, character array, so that will be improve our readability. So whenever some situation arises and we need to rename the attributes name, the methods name, that is also called as refactoring. And the next example can be the replacement of inline code with calls to methods that have been included in a program library. So this says that suppose I am writing a program. I want to calculate the power of 2 of 3. So I don't know that there is an inbuilt function named as pow function. So what I can go for? I will write some code, some statements, some line of statements that will calculate the power of 2 number. So when after, suppose after 1 month, 2 months or 2 days, 3 days, when I am using a pair programming concept, I have some colleague and I come to know that there is a library function, that is pow function. So that time I have to improve my code. I don't need to calculate the power of 2 number by using 3 to 4 line of codes. In a single line, by using the pow library function, I can calculate the power. So that time I have to remove those codes, those 3 to 4 line of code, and I have to put, there is a single code that will use the pow, that is the in library function. So that is what a inline code. We know that there are several packages, there are several library, those are inbuilt. So we can just use them. We are just using them for our better understand or for our better code, better readability. So we can use them. So whenever we come to know that there are some library function, those are the inline function, we can attach them into our code. So this is also a refactoring because we are making some changes into our code. We are deleting our code and we are putting the library functions. So that is also a refactoring. So this is the second key practice of extreme programming, that is refactoring. The third one is taste first development. So let's see what is that taste first development. So taste first development is testing in central to XP, and XP has developed an approach where the program is tested after every change has been made. We have already discussed that. So whenever we are approaching the extreme programming, we are going to develop and deploy the software into different increments. So if my first increment is ready, the first increment will get tested. If the second increment will ready, then the second increment along with the first increment will get tested, like that. So testing is most important in the extreme programming approach. If I have my fifth increment, the fifth increment will get tested. Once the sixth increment will be done, then fifth and sixth both are get tested individually. Then after that, fifth and sixth will be integrated along. That means we are combining fifth and sixth. Then the fifth and sixth, whatever the system or subsystem we may have, after integrating the fifth and sixth component, then we can go for testing that individual. That means integrated testing should be there. So that is what actually extreme programming says, that testing is most important. And the testing features in the test first development should be, first one is your test first development or test driven development, incremental test development from scenarios, user involvement, and automated test. So let's see the first two things, that is test first development and incremental test development. That is actually, if we go for combining them, then that will be known as test driven development. So test driven development says that writing test before code clarifies the requirement to be implemented. So if you remember some of my previous video lecture, I gave an example. Suppose my refrigerator is not working, then I will go for the repairing of that refrigerator, or I will go for a mechanic. So what is my test plan? I don't know anything about the technical terms. I don't know what is amplifier, what is the voltage, I don't know. So what is the test plan in between me and the mechanic? That is, I will say him that after 5 days I will put a bowl of water into my fridge. If my bowl of water will convert it into ice, or if it will freeze, then I know that my fridge was working and I will pay for that. If the bowl of water will not freeze, then I will not pay for that repairing. So that is my test plan. Like that, before developing a software, there should be test plan. The test plan should be written. Actually the process of software development is, first test plan will be written, then the development process will be done, after that the testing will be done. This is obvious. After having anything like you maybe your fridge, maybe your AC, maybe your TV, maybe your software. So after having that product in our hand, we will go for testing. But here the first concern is we have to write the test plan. If I will have my product after 5 months, then what will be the test plan? How I can know that my software is working or not? So that should be written in the first phase, that is the test plan writing. So the test tests are written as programs rather than data, so that can be executed automatically. The test includes a check that is executed correctly. So it is actually relies on testing framework. So it says that the testing plan should be written in case of programming language. That means the testing, there should be some framework like JUnit. JUnit is a popular framework from Java programs. So whatever the Java programs may be, JUnit is there, that is the automated tested tool. Then we can use that JUnit for testing our Java program. If there will be no JUnit or there will be no automated test tool, then what will happen? That means if there will be no automated testing tool, then the person who is developing the code or who is responsible for coding, he will manually check all the codes. We have compiler, we have translator, we have assembler, we have interpreter. So they are the testing tools. They can test our codes and they can say us that these are the errors. So they are the automated tested tools. So we have some automated tester tool. Those are actually the programs. We are not writing the test plan in terms of data and informations or in terms of sequential lines. We are writing the test plan in terms of program so that they can execute it automatically. And the next point says all previous and new tests are run automatically when new functionalities is added, thus checking that the new functionality has not introduced error. So what is that? Suppose I have a version 1, V1. So V1 will be tested as T1. V1 will get tested by using the test plan, that is T1. Then after adding some features, we will have the version V2. So V2 will not be tested by using only T1. So V2 is the new version of V1. Some new features has added to V1, then only we get the V2. So V2 will be tested by using the previous test plan, that is T1, and some new test plan, that is T2. So when we will have the version 3, that is V3, then V3 will get tested by using the previous version, that is T1, then the last version, that is T2, and the new version, that is T3. So there should be new versions and new test plans. The previous version and the previous test plan should be integrated with the new version and the new test plan. Then the new version will get tested. So this is the test driven development. So after writing the test plans, that means test driven development, we will go for customer involvement. So customer involvement means what? Where we need the customer involvement? When we are going to give that test plans or that version to the customer for the review purpose, then we should have the co-work with the customer. The customer will help us for reviewing the test plans. So customer will review the customer actually writing the test plans, because we are developing the software for the customer. The customer will give us the test plan. I will give him the software or the versions of the software. Then the customer will test the version with the test plan. So after the customer involvement, we have some automated testing tool. We have already discussed on that, like JUnit. We have some automated tester tool that will help the developer or the testing engineer to make their work simple. If there will be no automated testing tool, then it will be very difficult for the testing engineer to test each and individual versions with having each and individual test plans. So these are the key practices. And the last key practices of extreme programming approach is the pair programming, that we have already discussed in our previous video lecture. What is actually pair programming? Pair programming means there is a team, they will work on the same program for the same system. So what actually the advantages of the pair program? That means there is a collective ownership. Everyone is responsible for developing the code. Everyone is responsible for changing the code. So that is the concept of pair programming. If you don't have any knowledge about the pair programming, just go through the last video. There we have already discussed on pair programming. So we have completed the influential key practices of extreme programming approach. In the next class, we will go for agile method management. Have a great time. Thank you.